So we're going to continue our story of Pinocchio. We left off on chapter 12, and today I'm going to pick up on chapter 13, and I'm going to read approximately about 15 minutes. So I'm not sure how far we'll cover today, but I'm going to stop at the end of the chapter that's closest to 15 minutes. So hopefully 3, maybe 4 chapters we can read. All right, so chapter 13. They walked and walked and walked. Remember, he met a cat and a fox? That seemed a little sneaky. Okay, so they walked and walked and walked until at last, toward evening, they arrived dead tired at the inn of the Red Crawfish. Let us stop here a little, said the fox, that we may have something to eat and rest ourselves for an hour or two. We will start again at midnight, so as to arrive at the Field of Miracles by dawn tomorrow morning. When they had gone into the inn, they all three sat down to table, but none of them had any appetite. The cat, who was suffering from indigestion and feeling seriously indisposed, could only eat 35 mullet with tomato sauce. Mullet is a type of fish. So he said he was sick and tired and he couldn't eat, but he ate 35 fish, okay? And 4 portions of tripe. That's menudo. 4 portions of tripe with Parmesan cheese. And because she thought the tripe was not seasoned enough, she asked 3 times for the butter and the grated cheese. The fox also would willingly have picked a little, but at his but as his doctor had ordered him a strict diet, he was forced to content himself simply with a hare dressed with a sweet and sour sauce. A hare is a rabbit, so he asked for a rabbit, a whole entire rabbit, and he's on a strict diet, okay? With sweet and sour sauce, garnished lightly with fat chickens and early pullets. After the hare, he sent for a made dish of partridges, rabbits, frogs, lizards, and other delicacies. He could not touch anything else. He had such a disgust for food, he said, that he could put nothing to his lips. So it looks like they were really eating like kings, weren't they? I wonder who was going to pay. The one who ate the least was Pinocchio. He asked for some walnuts and a hunch of bread, and he left everything on his plate. The poor boy, whose thoughts were continually fixed on the field of miracles, had, in anticipation, got an indigestion of gold pieces. When they had when they had supped, that means after they ate supper, the fox said to the host, "Give us 2 good rooms, one for Mr. Pinocchio and the other for me and my companion. We will snatch a little sleep before we leave. Remember, however, that at midnight we wish to be called to continue our journey." "Yes, gentlemen," answered the host, and he winked at the fox and the cat, as much as to say, "I know what you are up to. We understand one another." No sooner had Pinocchio gotten into bed than he fell asleep and began to dream. And he dreamed that he was in the middle of a field, and the field was full of shrubs covered with clusters of gold sovereigns. And as they sang, the wind, they as they swung in the wind, they went zin, 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 almost as if they could say, "Let who will come and take us." But when Pinocchio was at the most interesting moment, that is, just as he was stretching out his hand to pick handfuls of those beautiful gold pieces and put them in his pocket, he was suddenly wakened by 3 violent blows on the door of his room. It was the host, who had come to tell him that midnight had struck. "Are my companions ready?" asked the puppet. "Ready? Why, they left 2 hours ago." "Why were they in such a hurry?" "Because the cat had received a message to say that her oldest kitten was sick with chilblains on his feet and was in danger of death." "Did they pay for the supper?" "What are you thinking of? They are much too well educated to dream of offering such an insult to a gentleman like you." "What a pity. It is an insult that would have given me so much pleasure," said Pinocchio, scratching his head. He then asked, And where did my good friends say they would wait for me? At the Field of Miracles tomorrow morning at daybreak. Pinocchio paid a sovereign for his supper and that of his companions and then left. So his friends tricked him into paying for everything, and they knew what they were doing because otherwise I don't think they would have ate so much, right? So outside the inn, it was so pitch dark that he had almost to grope his way, for it was impossible to see a hand's breadth in front of him. In the adjacent country, not a leaf moved, only some night birds flying across the road from one hedge to the other brushed Pinocchio's nose with their wings as they passed, which caused him so much terror that, springing back, he shouted, "Who goes there?" And the echo in the surrounding hills repeated in the distance, "Who goes there? Who goes there? Who goes there?" As he was walking along, he saw a little insect shining dimly on the trunk of a tree, like a night light in a lamp of a transparent china. "Who are you?" asked Pinocchio. "I am the ghost of the talking cricket," answered the insect in a low voice, so weak and faint that it seemed to come from the other world. "What do you want with me?" said the puppet. "I want to give you some advice. Go back and take the 4 sovereigns that you have left to your poor father, who is weeping in despair because you have never returned to him. By tomorrow, my papa will be a gentleman, for these 4 sovereigns will have become 2,000. Don't trust, my boy, to those who promise to make you rich in one day. Usually they are either mad, that means crazy, or rogues, thieves. Give ear to me and go back. That means listen to what I'm saying. The hour is late. I am determined to go on. The night is dark. I am determined to go on. The road is dangerous. I am determined to go on. Remember that boys who are bent on following their caprices, that means their stubbornness. In Spanish, they say sus caprichos. So the cricket is saying, remember that boys who are stubborn to follow their way will have their own way. Sooner or later, they will repent. Always the same story. Good night, cricket. Good night, Pinocchio. And may heaven preserve you from dangers and from assassins. No sooner had he said these words that the talking cricket vanished suddenly like a light that was blown out, and the road became darker than ever. And this is a picture of when Pinocchio and the fox and the cat were sitting at the crawfish inn having their supper. And they're just talking to him and probably telling him all kinds of lies to trick him into stealing his money. Okay? So, chapter 14. "Really," said the puppet to himself as he resumed his journey, "how unfortunate we poor boys are. Everybody scolds us, everybody admonishes us, everybody gives us advice, good advice. To let them talk, they would all take it into their heads to be our fathers and our masters, all, even the cricket." So he was complaining about how everybody was trying to tell him what to do and trying to be a father to him. He was very ungrateful for the good advice that they were giving him. "See now, because I don't choose to listen to that tiresome cricket, who knows, according to him, how many misfortunes are to happen to me. I am even to meet with assassins. That is, however, of little consequence, for I don't believe in assassins. I have never believed in them. For me, I think that assassins have been invented purposely by papas to frighten boys who want to go out at night." So he's has a very negative attitude. He's thinking, I don't believe what he's saying. I don't even think there's assassins out there. They just probably make that up to try to control me. Besides, supposing I was to come across them here in the road, do you imagine they would frighten me? Not in the least world. I should go to meet them and cry, "Gentlemen assassins, what do you want from me?" So he's pretending he met one, and he's saying, this is what I would say. "Gentlemen assassins, what do you want from me? Remember that with me, there's no joking. Therefore, go about your business and be quiet." At this speech, he said in a determined tone, "Those poor assassins, I think I see them. would run away like the wind. If, however, they were so badly educated as not to run away, why then I would run away myself and there would be an end to it. So he's thinking that that's what would happen if he really met some assassins. Either they would run away or he would run away. But Pinocchio had no time to finish his reasoning, for at that moment he thought he heard a slight rustle of leaves behind him. He turned to look, and he saw in the gloom two evil-looking black figures, completely enveloped in charcoal sacks. That means black sacks. They were running after him on tiptoe and making great leaps like two phantoms. Here they are in reality, he said to himself, not knowing where to hide his gold pieces, he put them in his mouth, precisely under his tongue. Then he tried to escape, but he had not gone a step when he felt himself seized by the arm and heard two horrid sepulchral voices saying to him, that means like haunting voices, your money or your life. Pinocchio, not being able to answer in words, owing to the money that was in his mouth, he made 1,000 low blows and 1,000 pantomimes. He tried thus to make two muffled figures. Thus to make the two muffled figures, whose eyes were visible only through holes in their sacks, understood that he was a poor puppet, and that he had not as much as a false farthing in his pocket. Come now, less nonsense, and out with the money, cried the two brigands threateningly. That means the two bad men. They said that threateningly. And the puppet made a gesture with his hand to signify, I have none. Deliver up your money or you're dead, said the tallest of the two brigands. Dead, repeated the other, and after we have killed you, we will also kill your father. Also your father. No, 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 not my poor papa, cried Pinocchio in a despairing tone. And he said, and as he said it, the sovereigns clinked in his mouth. Ah, you rascal! Then you have hidden your money under your tongue. Spit it out at once. But Pinocchio was obdurate. Oh, you pretend to be deaf, do you? Wait a moment. Leave it to us to find a means to make you spit it out. And one of them seized the puppet by the end of his nose, and the other took him by the chin and began to pull them brutally, the one up and the other down, to constrain him to open his mouth. But it was all to no purpose. Pinocchio's mouth seemed to be nailed and riveted together. Then the shorter assassin drew out an ugly knife and tried to force it between his lips like a lever or a chisel. But Pinocchio, as quick as lightning, caught his hand with his teeth and with one bite bit it clean off and spit it out. What did he do? One of them tried to open his mouth with his hand, and Pinocchio opened his mouth and grabbed his hand and bit it off and spit it out. He spit out a cat's paw on the ground. So guess who's under the black sack? Encouraged by this first victory, he used his nails to such purpose that he succeeded in liberating himself from his assailants, and jumping the hedge by the roadside, he began to fly across country. The assassins ran after him like two dogs chasing a hare, and the one who had lost a paw ran on one leg, and no one ever knew how he managed it. And after a race of some time, Pinocchio could do no more. Giving himself up for lost, he climbed the trunk of a high pine tree, and he seated himself in the topmost branches. The assassins attempted to climb after him, but when they had reached halfway up the trunk, they slid down again and arrived on the ground with the skin grazed from their hands and their knees. But they were not to be beaten by so little. Collecting a quantity of dry wood, they piled it beneath the pine, and they set it on fire. In less time than it takes to tell, the pine began to burn and to flame like a candle blown in the wind. Pinocchio, seeing that the flames were mounting higher every instant, and not wishing to end his life as a roasted pigeon, he made a stupendous leap from the top of the tree and started afresh across the fields and the vineyards. The assassins followed him and kept behind him without once giving in. The day began to break. That means the sun started to rise, and they were still chasing him. And suddenly Pinocchio found his way barred by a wide, deep dish full of dirty water and the color of coffee. What was he to do? "One, two, three," cried the puppet, and making a rush, he sprang to the other side. The assassins also jumped, but not having measured the distance properly, splash, splash, they fell into the very middle of the ditch. Pinocchio, who heard the plunge and the splashing of the water, shouted out, laughing, and without stopping, "A fine bath to you, gentlemen assassins!" He was making fun of them. And he felt convinced that they were drowned, but turning to look, he perceived that, on the contrary, they were both running after him, still enveloped in their sacks, with the water dripping from them as if they had been two hollow baskets. And this is a black and white picture of Pinocchio up on top of the pine tree, and it's kind of hard to tell, but these are flames from the fire. They're trying to put the pine tree on fire to burn him down. Okay, so that is the end of chapter 14, and it's been 16 minutes. So I'm going to stop there. The two chapters were very long. When they're short chapters, I can read 3 or 4. So next week we'll pick up on chapter 15, and they look like they're short, so I should be able to read 3 chapters next week, okay? So we'll see you next week with chapter 15. Bye-bye.